What is going on? Welcome back to Financial Journey. So today I want to talk to you about SoFi, more specifically the news that came out about SoftBank. I want to talk about that, what that means for us as investors and SoFi in the grand scheme of things. Before I get into any of that though, making sure you guys hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I greatly appreciate that. With that though, let's get right to it. Live tickers going at the very bottom, currently down 6.5%, 14.1 million for volume. So definitely up there within the first 1 hour of the trading day. So it's definitely going to be a high volume day, probably over our average, which is 46.1 million. And then over and above that, 2.4 million shares being purchased by institutions just today alone on the secondary market. So when it comes down to it though, there was news that hypothetically SoftBank is planning to sell either some or all of its 9% stake in SoFi. So that is pretty substantial. And what does that actually mean? So that means based on their last 13F, which was in May, 95.2 million shares is tentatively what they have. So at the end of the day, they haven't submitted their new 13F. Most likely it will be coming this week, if not early next week. So we'll find out ultimately what happens in that regard, whether they added, subtracted, whatever it is in Q2. Keep in mind that's obviously delayed information, but there was news that did come out, and unfortunately it's not necessarily the best. So it does appear that on August the 8th, they did sell 6.6 million shares of SoFi at a price of $8.17. And it does say right here the total transaction cost was 54.6 million. So again, it does show and insinuate that most likely they are going to start selling some of their position. Again, it's up to debate on how much they may or may not do, but why are they doing this? Because of very, very poor performance. So 21.6 billion, that is absolutely crazy that they lost in their last quarterly results, and that was posted yesterday. So that is pretty substantial. So in their case, they're just trying to mitigate as much risk as possible. So at the end of the day, this is not a SoFi problem, this is a SoftBank problem. So especially with our recent earnings, we killed it, completely killed it. SoftBank on the other hand is suffering big time, even more recently based on last quarter as well. So in Q1, it does look like they were continuously trying to mitigate risk. So they did sell 2.1 billion to GM as far as their stake in Cruise. At the end of the day, this one was very interesting to me because I cover Lucid as well, and GM is trying to get the same technology as Lucid in this case as well. But it ultimately does go to show that there has been a underlying red flag for SoftBank. So once again, like I said, this is a SoftBank problem, not necessarily a SoFi problem. So just make sure you ingrain that, because at the end of the day, unfortunately, this news did come out and is really killing momentum. So it is very sad to see this all happen, because technically as well, CPI data is coming out tomorrow. So that's also aiding into the little bit more of a tentative sell-off right now. And so at the end of the day, let me know your thoughts on this in the comments below. At the end of the day though, if you do read between the lines, even with them selling 6.6 million shares, SoFi was still up. They went up 0.25% yesterday. So even with them selling as much as they did, we were still green. So again, I say it for the third time because I want to ingrain that in a lot of individuals' minds. This is a SoftBank problem, not a SoFi problem. So this is why I decided to buy today, because at the end of the day, SoFi had killer earnings, and I don't think anyone can disagree with that. So that's my own 2 cents. Keep in mind though, I am not a financial advisor, so do your own due diligence at the end of the day. Let me know your thoughts on this and SoftBank, because at the end of the day though, I know a lot of individuals really wanted SoftBank to really back SoFi and to add, not to subtract their position. Especially right now, SoftBank is SoFi's biggest actual institutional holder. So it's one of those things that just really sucks at the end of the day. But once again, similar to what happened to BlackRock in Q1, they lost a ton of money, but theirs was more so in relation to the Russia situation and their exposure for that. But clearly goes to show that a lot of institutions out there are suffering big time. So at the end of the day, there's not really much we can do. We just have to do our own due diligence and realize that SoFi is a long-term investment, is doing phenomenal things, and we just need to stick to our gut. So that's my own 2 cents on what is happening with SoFi and what you should do and what I did do. So with that, I just want to cap it off with some technical analysis. So once again, a little bit more of a tentative sell-off right now. We are still fairly positive though. So looking on the actual chart at the 50, 100, 200-day moving averages, Bollinger Bands, RSI, stochastic, and momentum. Momentum number of buyers have gone down ever since the earnings came out. Stochastic, you can see as of right now there is a deviation, so red line above the black showing a little bit more of a bearish sentiment is wanting to form. And looking at RSI is fairly neutral right now. And looking on the actual chart, despite everything, we're still higher percent of the Bollinger Band, still above the 100-day moving average. So things look fairly okay. And I say okay in a neutral stance. Obviously, it could go either way, largely in anticipation with tomorrow's news, which is CPI data. So that should dictate whether we trend up or down despite the SoftBank news. So that's my own 2 cents on how I see things. Just want to give you a quick breakdown on some support and resistance points. So as far as resistance points, you can see right here the first, second, and third, $8.35, $8.73, and $8.96. On the contrary, as far as support, first, second, and third. So first one is 774, 751, and 713. So we did actually break past the first two. They're very tight knit. I don't anticipate us touching the third one today, but again, depending on how CPI turns out tomorrow, you never know. We could break below this third support point. Obviously tomorrow and overnight, it's going to adjust where our support points are. So let me know your thoughts on all of this in the comments below. If you haven't already, hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I greatly appreciate that. And if you do like my channel and support the growth, take a look at my memberships. Link in the description below, or just hit the join button at the bottom of the screen. With that said, I appreciate you guys watching, and let's all make a lot of money on SoFi.